You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Speak clearly and be understood for the IELTS speaking test. Hello there, IELTS students. In this tutorial, we are going to be looking at speaking clearly, being understood, and with us we have a speech therapist and language expert, Esther Brill from speakmoreclearly.com. Hi there, Esther. How are you doing?
Great, Ben. Great to be here. Thank you. Yep.
Awesome. Good. Yeah. Well, as you probably know, Esther's been on this show a few times, but just for those who haven't heard your voice before, could you tell us how you got into teaching speaking and like how it all progressed? Because now you've fully grown into like online courses and one-to-one service. Is that right?
Yes. I originally started. I'm being a speech therapist. I work with children and adults to help them speak more clearly. And in Australia, there are a lot of migrants, people coming from all over the world, and often they have really good skills, but they have a heavy accent. And I've had people come to me saying, I've gone to an interview and the interview panel have said, wow, you've got fantastic skills, but your communication is very poor, meaning we can't understand you. And you need, go away and deal with that and then come back and we'll have a look again, and This is very frustrating for people. So I started some groups going and people would come to the clinic, and then after a while, more and more people wanted the service. So I developed some courses. We have a British accent course, Australian accent course, and an American accent course. So they're pronunciation courses, and people can use them to either neutralize their accent or get one of those accents or just speak more clearly. It's up to people. They're online courses, and they have lots and lots of video training, audio training, higher level vocabulary, dialogues, everything, and specific how to pronounce different vowels, how to make the consonants, and in words and in sentences, lots and lots of practice material as well, including also stress and rhythm and intonation and all of those things.
Yeah, because one takeaway I got from the last tutorial we did together was that it's incredibly some sounds and some like ideas and some concepts that need to be taught and sort of like ingrained and integrated into your language can be quite technical. And as you mentioned, I remember clearly you said that a lot of native English speakers have just developed a hack to get around it. And unless you're explicitly taught that hack, you could probably spend time being frustrated trying to figure out what it is they're doing. No?
Yeah. I had a client in our yearly subscription course, because it takes a while to change your accent. I mean, you can see a difference. We've had lots of people say after 2 months of practice every day for 15 minutes, they can actually already see a difference. But if you want to fully change it, it takes a while. And in our yearly course, we're offering live once a month coaching with me in a group, but people can volunteer to be coached for 15 minutes in the hour. And one of the guys who had a pretty good American accent said, so we have different groups, Australian, American, British. One of the guys in the American group said, look, I know how to say TH, but I don't know. He said, I'm having trouble saying it when I'm speaking quickly. And I had to teach him a hack that we do, which is when you're first learning it, you have to stick your tongue out and keep it there long enough.
Yeah.
But afterwards, when you're speaking quickly, it's almost as if you just put your tongue just behind the back of the front top teeth in the middle there, and do it there, but you still have to let enough air out and move on, especially if there's a consonant.
Yeah.
at the beginning of the next word or whatever. Yeah. So yes, there are different hacks that, but for the most part, you can really become much clearer just with the usual standard American, Australian, British sort of pronunciation training. Yeah.
It's funny you should mention the TH sounds, because I've got a friend from Montreal, and when I'm listening, I mean, I think he's made like one grammar mistake in the entire time I've been listening. Well, we've been talking, but all his TH sounds are pronounced with a D. So it's like, I got that course, and he does it all the time, and it's really. But I don't know if it's actually. Yeah, I should send him to one of your courses actually, but that might be. I don't think a Canadian would take kindly to that.
No, probably. Unless he's a French Canadian, maybe that's why he does it. I don't know.
I think that would probably be the case, but it's okay. So let's move on. So we're going to have a look at seven tips to improve, to speak clearly and be understood for the test.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first one is breath control. So because a lot of people actually, a lot of the students find that they run out of breath because they don't breathe and pause enough, because English just runs on and on and on and on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you have a whole lot of linking or long words in a sentence, you have to have enough breath to get to the end of it, or to where the comma is or the pause is, and you can't breathe in between words like you can more in a different languages that are syllable timed, where the rhythm is more da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
So breath control is important. So you might have to make sure you have enough air to get to the end of the sentence. And I'm going to talk to people about how to take in enough air in 1 sec, but I'm just want to say why it's important, and especially if people are presenting or chairing a meeting or giving a talk or having an IELTS test, speaking test. So it's you need your breath control to make sure you have enough air to get to the end of the sentence. You need it to stress words in sentences to sound fluent. You need it to relax, especially in an IELTS speaking test. So if you breathe deeply, you relax your vocal cords. So you can, and your neck and your throat and your mouth aren't as tight. And so you're not as high pitched, which is a nicer resonance in a way. And if you're more relaxed, you're able to get to the sounds better. It's the same as anything. If we're holding our tennis racket really tight, it's harder to do the movement properly, So the idea is, if people put their hand on their abdomen, which is where their belly button is, okay, and if they take a breath in through their nose and breathe into the stomach to the abdomen, so that they can either sit or stand and do this, so that the abdomen, the stomach goes out a little bit. And if they put their hand on where the belly button is, then they can feel it. So they breathe in. Now, shoulders are not going to go up. It's breathing into the stomach, it's sort of diaphragmatic breathing, into where the belly button is. And then as you speak, what's happening is the air is going out of that area as I'm speaking now. And then I take another quick breath in because I've run out of air. It's through my mouth, like that. I'm overdoing the sound. Into the belly button area again, into the abdomen area. And as you speak, your hand should come back towards your spine because you're releasing the air from there and up and into the lungs. Now, it's important to notice that for stressing words in sentences or stressing syllables as well. So if people put their hand on their abdomen where their belly button is, and they go, and they do it loud, sorry, I didn't mean to do that in your ears, but if they just, they'll notice that there's a push. Their abdomen pushes and that pushes the air up into the lungs and pushes it out. So when we stress a word, when we elongate a vowel, that's what we're doing. We're pushing the air up to actually cause the emphasis or the stress.
Excellent. Yeah, I was doing it, all the exercises while you were explaining them. And it's, I remember I did a speaking course years ago, and it was basically like to improve the projection of your voice. You do similar things, because a lot of us, we talk like from the nasal area. I know I do. But
a lot of us do. Yeah.
And this exercise, it brings it, it's like a deeper breathing. It's and it basically filling up your lungs with air, and then integrating all of that oxygen, all of that air into your speech, rather than just pushing it all out from a nasal level. Is that right?
Yeah. Or a chest level.
Yeah.
Because most of us, when we're young, we naturally breathe from the stomach. If you look at a baby or an infant, a young child, then they're breathing naturally from that area, from the abdomen. It goes, you breathe into the abdomen, then you breathe out, the air goes out through the lungs. It's not like you're not doing something with your lungs. You breathe in from the abdomen, and then it comes into your lungs, and then it goes out. That is... often when people say breathe in deeply, people lift their shoulders and breathe from their chest. So it's getting more air in, and it actually, it's great for your health also.
Totally.
Yeah.
I was reading a book a while back about breathing through the nose and breathing deeply, and you'll get all these benefits. But also, just going back to IELTS, these deep breathing technique, as Esther said, it's not only going to improve the delivery of your speech, but you're also going to feel a bit more of a relaxing effect, because it, as Esther said, it's diaphragmatic breathing, which does bring a little bit of calmness into your physiology, and this will also help, because feeling a bit more calmer, you're going to be able to organize your thoughts better, and there's just a whole ton of benefits from integrating this technique into your speech. So that's an excellent point there, Esther.
And if people don't know how to do it at first, they just breathe into the belly, put their hand on their stomach. They can lie down, and that might be easier because they can feel it better. And once they've taken the air in, then they just count and notice how the air goes out. So breathe in to the belly, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, depending on how much you've breathed in. And that allows you to see how to let the air go out while you're talking, because some people sort of can't coordinate it. Anyway, that's just an extra piece there.
Super. What else could a student do? So
resonance is important too. Like you were saying, some people are more nasal and talk a bit more like that than others. It doesn't matter. But in English, most of our sounds are resonated in the mouth, around underneath the eye and around the cheeks there, and forward and out. Okay? So we do have a voice course, which is not an accent reduction. It's for anybody. And it's shows you all of this breath technique and resonance and projection and pitch and all of that stuff. If anyone's interested, it's on our website. But the first thing for resonance is to open your mouth more, okay? Because you have to allow the sound to come out. If you're just talking like this to the IELTS teacher, it's not going to help because the IELTS teacher has to strain to hear you. So opening your mouth. Now, the other thing with resonance is you don't push, but you imagine and you send the sound out. Let's say towards your top front teeth. Okay, let's have a focal point. So if I say, I'm just doing it at the back of my throat. If I say, I'm opening my mouth more, and imagining and sending, but not pushing. You don't want to hurt your throat. Sending the sound out towards the speaker. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've taught a similar technique of sort of like imagining the words, seeing the words or visualizing the words going over to the speaker. And I think it sounds similar to what you're saying.
Definitely. And even just that mental action makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Because you're directing it, your physiology will follow that mental action, as it were. Yeah.
Totally agree. Great tip.
The next one that I thought, now this is a bit of a funny title, this one. It says slow down to speed up. Okay. Now, so what do I mean by this? When people are learning to speak English clearly, they still use their own speech rate, and they don't take time to land on the main vowels in a word long enough. And what happens is everything gets shortened, and so the listener goes, hang on, what was that? And especially if you shorten a vowel. Vowels, if you fiddle with a consonant, okay, people can understand you. But if you shorten a vowel, it often changes the meaning of the word, and then nobody knows what you're talking about. But what do I mean by slowing down to speed up? So if I speak, I'm speaking fairly quickly at the moment, but I said fairly. I stretched the air out. So I slowed down even though I'm speaking quickly, but I slowed down on certain vowels. So if I say that sentence again, even though I'm speaking fairly quickly, so even the E was lengthened slightly, fairly the air was lengthened, and the it in quickly I lengthen slightly. Even though it's a short vowel, you can lengthen it slightly.
Right.
So it's this trick of going, okay, because what people do is they learn the vowel and then they speed up back to the normal speech rate, which they need to do eventually. We're not too quick. Okay, English isn't such a quick language. Well, it is. Anyway, when you're in an exam, it isn't. They then shorten the vowel again. No, you're slowing down on the particular stressed vowels,
right?
Even though you're speaking quickly. And it's a real trick to do because so you land on the vowel and you hold it a nanosecond longer. That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah? So I'll give you an example. So first of all, every single syllable word, the vowel is stressed. So if you only have one vowel in the word, the vowel is stressed. Yeah?
Right.
Words of longer multisyllabic words, I'll give you an example. In the word accountant, the cown, the owl, is the stressed, lengthened vowel.
Right.
Now, I can say that word quickly, but while I'm saying it quickly, I will still hold the ow on for a nanosecond longer, like I'm pulling out an elastic band a little bit.
Right.
Yeah? Okay. So accountant, but you can still hear the cown, the ow is held longer. I'm not saying accountant.
Okay.
I'm making the ow long. Yeah?
Right.
So even though I'm speeding up, I'm slowing a part of the word down, which is the stressed vowel, and it still has to have its value. You can't shorten it.
Right. So
if I do,
sorry,
go on. Yeah.
Just to get it clear. So we are speaking that little bit faster. However, certain vowel sounds will not get shortened, even though we might be speaking overall faster. We're not going to shorten those vowel sounds because they're much more important to the overall delivery. Is that right? Am I understanding it correctly?
Yes, brilliant. Thank you. Much better said.
I put it in layman's terms.
Yeah, thank you. That was great.
All right.
That was really good. Yeah. So that's, and it's, even though it's a fairly technical thing, it's actually, when you learn stress and rhythm of English, you learn that you have to say the ow longer, but often people then don't make it long enough when they speed up again. Yeah.
I see. So it kind of like, they learn it once, then it goes by the by. They forget about it, and got it. I got you.
And it's really important for those people who, I know we're talking about IELTS, but I'm just going to say a quick thing on the side. For those people who are tired of people saying, "Where are you from?" That's one of the things that happens. They then speed up and they shorten the stressed vowel, and then people immediately go, "Where are you from?"
Right. Yeah.
But it's also important in the IELTS test, obviously, because people want to get a higher score. So don't rush the bits that have to be stressed.
Yeah, and this
emphasized.
This is a really important point, because there will be phrases in English, like you just said, the answers to where are you from, you'll get that more often, and it'll start to become automatic. And I remember going to language exchanges, and I would always get the question, "Where are you from?" And I'd say, "I'm from Manchester, da, da, da." And because you get used to saying the phrase so many times, it becomes faster. And this, I think, is a perfect example of what you're saying, that the whole phrase becomes almost automatic, to the point where you're not thinking, and you forget the rules that you'd learned.
To make it clear.
Exactly. And it's so important that you mentioned this, because in the IELTS test, we do get the same question: are you working or are you studying? And if you've got these preconditioned answers just from answering the question so many times, hopefully from not doing so many IELTS tests, but from just saying giving the same answer to just throughout your life, it's important to still put attention into that sentence and deliver it like it's the first time. And also, as like you're excited to be there, you do not want to fall into this automatic, just rote repetition of just saying it. Put some effort into it. And as Esther's saying, remember just to emphasize not to emphasize, just to not shorten the vowels.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And if they're not sure of which vowel is the one that has to be lengthened in a word of more than one syllable, they can look it up in the dictionary, and the syllable that has the little apostrophe before it is the one where they have to make sure the vowel stays long enough.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
All right.
But that's the stressed syllable. So they go, "Oh, that one I have to make the vowel very clear." Yeah.
Super.
But yes, and you are right, that rote thing that we don't, and it's about the audience. Okay? Like you and I have said before, if you're talking to your partner or your kid or your best mate, your best friend, you may speed up and half say your words. But if you're in an IELTS exam, that's not the audience for that.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking, like, you want it to reach a level of automaticity, but not unconscious automaticity. You still need to be aware of every single sound. Maybe not every single sound, but you really want to be at a higher level of awareness. You don't want to be switching off and talking as though you just slouched on the couch with a friend.
Yes.
Much more formal.
yes. Yeah. Which actually brings me to what I call active listening. Okay. And I'm sure you use this too, but for the grammar and for everything. But so what do I mean by that, and why is it important? So for neutralizing your accent, it means to purposefully and consciously listen. Okay, so it's not just a production thing, it's an auditory, a listening thing as well. And not only do you have to actively listen to others, but you have to actively listen to yourself. So when you're practicing clear pronunciation, you need to listen to how you are saying it, which sort of follows on from what you've just said. You know, are you still being clear? Are you saying your TH? Or you're just going unconscious and you think you're doing it? I have a client who He's an older gentleman and he's not doing it for an IELTS test. He just likes languages and he would like to have an Australian accent. And his background languages, he has several, are Asian background languages. And we worked on TH and he can do it beautifully and he can do it a lot of the time, but sometimes he just doesn't bother. And then he says, and I say to him, well, do you think you said all the THs in that sentence correctly? And he goes, yes, I think so.
Yeah.
But he hasn't listened to himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's that part of it.
And I think, could I just interject? I think
yeah,
there's
please. Yeah.
a real balance to being aware, like not overly aware that you're extremely conscious and it's interrupting your fluency, but not overly relaxed, as we were saying before, that you're just mumbling. And because you're around people that you've always been around, they understand you're mumbling. You've got to find that balance between speaking at a natural level, but being at a natural, relaxed level, and also just being aware and conscious of the actual sounds you're making.
Yeah, how your speech is presenting. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's interesting because a lot of students who do our online courses say all of a sudden, even though they're listening and repeating to trainers and whatever, they say all of a sudden now they can hear the difference in how they're pronouncing it and how the trainer is pronouncing it. Whereas before, even though they tried to listen for it, they didn't know what they were listening for. So that all of a sudden they go, oh, now I get what I meant to be listening for.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the light bulb switched on, isn't it?
Yes.
I remember this with one of my students, and he was with me for a couple of weeks, and I remember he came into the living room and I started speaking and his eyes just lit up and he was just like, I understood you for the, and it's, it's so rewarding when they get to that level. So it's definitely a skill worth focusing on and developing. So excellent point there.
Yeah. And the last point in actively listening to yourself, if you're recording yourself to see if you're being clearer, like you're practicing and you're recording, especially with the topics of the IELTS, for instance, that you're practicing, and you're listening back, and if you've been working on a particular element, a TH or a stress or just being clearer generally, listen just for that element. Okay, when you're doing the practice part, when you're listening back to yourself, So if you're practicing trying to say THs or Rs or stressing or pausing or whatever it is that you need to do, then just listen for that. Don't listen for every single thing or you'll drive yourself nuts.
Absolutely.
So have I achieved that? Yes, good, I can move on. Next time I record myself with a different IELTS topic, I'll listen. I'll listen if I'm saying the R correctly or whatever it happens to be.
Absolutely, I totally agree there. Just breaking it down into the smallest components, focusing on that component, mastering it, and then moving it on to the other one is excellent strategy. And you're just going to avoid being overwhelmed, and you're going to and also celebrate those little wins. You're going to get more frequent little wins, which is essential for keeping up your momentum and keeping up your motivation. So excellent point there, Esther.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And when you listen to others, there's a trick here. And other native English speakers, let's say, because that's what you're trying to model yourself off or with, as it were, for this particular exercise, the IELTS speaking exam. Notice if they pronounce a word in a different way to the way that you say it, and then write it down. Now, here's the trick. Don't write it down the way that it's normally spelt. Write it down the way that the person you were listening to actually said it. So it won't be the normal spelling. It'll be how you heard it being said. Yeah. And that way you can remember it much better and practice it.
Absolutely.
So for instance, if the word comfortable, okay, often people who don't realize that the OR, the or is not, it's an invisible, it's an omitted syllable, it gets left out. People say comfortable, and it's comfortable. Yeah. So listening to people, how they're saying things, noticing it. Don't over notice, like you said, but every now and again, switch on your noticing ears.
Yeah.
And if you heard them say comfortable and you went, oh, you'd write COMFTABLE to remind yourself that you don't say the or, for instance. A lot of my clients, students, I have trouble with the word surface. Because they say surface, because face is face.
Yeah.
And so they hear it and they don't register that it becomes fis, de-stressed. So it becomes short and squashed. Yeah. So you would write SURFS, for instance, surface, if you were going to write it how it sounded, for instance. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now that's a great tip. I've been doing the same with Hungarian, and but unfortunately, though, my Hungarian is so basic. I'm writing down as it sounds, but I've actually written down what I thought was one word is actually two words pushed together. But it's like early days. It's early days, but I totally recommend that tip of just writing it down as you hear it, and you're 10 times more likely to repeat it the way once you see it, and you take a note of how it's actually pronounced. So great point there. All right. What's the next point? Number 5, if something is difficult to say.
Yeah. So some people go, oh, I see how to do that now. And then they say it once and they expect it to be automatic afterwards, for instance. I would suggest the ones who really get a handle on it, they repeat it 10 times, 3 times a day. Okay. And I know it's a bit of an effort, but if you know what you have to say in the IELTS test, right? And most people who are going for a higher score already have pretty good English, right? So if they know what and they're practicing their topics and all of that, and there's a phrase in there or a technical term or whatever it is that it is, and they know that they have trouble getting their mouth around it, practice it, walk around the house. I'll tell you a story. My son, who lives in Taiwan, he is a translator, Chinese to English. And he got to the point where if you couldn't see his face, you didn't realize he wasn't a native Chinese speaker.
Wow.
And what did he do? When he lived here and he was starting out on his journey with Mandarin, he would have his headphones on, listening to the trainers in whatever the course was he was listening to. And he would walk around the house muttering to himself all day, when he was at home. Mata, 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 mata in Mandarin. But the beauty of that was his mouth was learning how to make it really easy, so it would roll off the tongue just really easily,
right?
Which is what you want to have happen in an IELTS test, because you don't want to have to be thinking of how you're saying it so much. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. I say that I give the very similar instructions. Like, for example, there's usually the question of like, where are you from, or are you working, or are you a student? This is the perfect opportunity to get a whole phrase of like, well, I'm a student and I'm in my second year, and you can, I wouldn't say memorize it, but you could get so familiar with it that you can just relax when you're saying it and be confident that it's coming out correctly. And that sets you off to a great start for your test. So,
and it's all about confidence, you're right. You know, whether it's just all about confidence as well. Yeah. But you have to have the technica, the actual sounds as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
So for instance, if people want to do linking and the sentence is, I like art that is easy to put on any wall, for instance, because you know how some of the questions are about what do you think about art or whatever,
Yeah.
So if you want to sound more flowing, you can do it like that. I like art that is easy to put on any wall. But that's a little bit choppy. If you want it to sound flowing, you have to use linking. So like cart joins together. That is joins together. Put on any all joins together. So if a word ends in a consonant and the next one begins with a vowel, you link it. That's how you sound more flowing in English. So people find that tricky because it becomes almost like this long multisyllabic word.
Yeah.
So repeat it 10 times. I have a lady in Hong Kong. She said, I walk around the house repeating it 10 times and I've got it now. I like art. That is easy to put on any wall and you link it all together.
Yeah. I cut up a Hungarian pop song and I just put it into like 3 words, chopped it up into like chunks of 5 seconds of 3 words. And it's just, now it's like 20 minutes and every 3 words is repeated about 20 times. And honestly, if I play it to a Hungarian, it's like a torture for them. It's just over and over and over again. But it's that I want to memorize these phrases. And if I memorize it like this, it's going to be exactly like you said, with this connected speech. And just one last thing before we move on to the next point, that this connected speech is one of the reasons why English just sounds like a block of sound for lower level listeners. And once you can, I think once you start incorporating or become aware of this connected speech, it opens basically the keys for understanding and connected speech when you hear it, because now you've got an idea of what is going on. So excellent point there. Okay, what's the next?
You can use it for, hang on, can I just say you can use it for grammar as well? Like if you're leaving the S off the present continuous verbs, eat, eats, you can use it, this idea of doing it over and over and over, walk around like that, or ED or whatever it is, okay, the next one is, this is something you referred to recently, which was the mental action for clear speech. So it does take courage. You have to wear it. You have to step into it. Yeah. I have to do this with my American people that I coach. It's not my accent, obviously. I have an Australian accent. And I have to step into it and wear it and put it on and just do it. And it's the same if I do a standard British accent, because the vowels are slightly different, they're more resonated, et cetera, et cetera. And I know it feels, but I have some students who go, I can do it when I'm at home. You have to be brave. If you do want to be clearer, if you do want to neutralize your accent, you literally have to it's almost like taking a character on until it feels comfortable.
Excellent analogy. Yeah, excellent analogy. I know exactly what you mean. When I speak Spanish, I raise my volume and I speak louder, and I don't know, I feel a lot more sociable, and it's like exactly like you said, it's stepping into that character and being a little bit more spontaneous, and I find that helps a lot, because if I go with my British reservedness, I would get eaten alive in a Spanish conversation. It's got to be much more spontaneous and much more rowdy, much more natural, much more flowing,
Yeah, you wouldn't get a word in edgewise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I like this idea. I never really thought about it until you just mentioned it. So good point.
I do speak another language as well, and it's also a rowdy one, and you just have to step up.
Exactly. It's fascinating, I think, these different energy and characters the language brings. And for the last point, could you step into your American accent and be the American American Esther?
One of my best, but yeah. Okay, I'll do a few sentences. Okay.
Okay, super.
Okay, so the last one is, when you practice answers to possible questions for IELTS speaking topics. Okay.
Wow, that's awesome. Well done.
You have to organize and think about what you're going to say, which is what Ben is teaching you anyway. Okay. Well, this is vital because the more familiar you are with the content, etc., etc. Can I go back to my normal accent?
Yeah. I found myself just focusing on the accent and not listening to the content. So it's like,
I know. Because I do it, but I probably haven't done it enough. Like, because I do it when I switch it on to just teach people.
Right.
But I haven't had to use it a lot continuously, if you see what I mean.
Gotcha. It's more like a teaching mode.
Yeah. So if I was in America and I had to use it, then I would. And I found that the more I teach American people who want American accents, the better I get at it during the lesson, if you see what I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You warm up with it, don't you?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Which is the same for the students, the IELTS students, you know. You warm up with it. You feel like you're getting better at it and more confident. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the point I was trying to make was that when you're working on the topics for the IELTS exam, as a speaking exam, you do have to organize your thinking. You do have to practice it. It's the same in your own language. If you were going to give a talk on a topic, you would write it out, you would organize it, and then you would practice it over and over. And the more you practiced it, the more you would find that you were at ease with the topic. You knew what you wanted to say, and therefore you then relaxed and you could move your mouth more. You could do all of those things and be clearer. Yeah. So that's Ben's job, your job, which you help them organize what they're going to say and how they're going grammatically and just their thoughts and everything in English. What I would suggest is, and maybe I don't know if you've already told them, that they record themselves and practice the sections that don't sound clear. Okay.
Excellent point.
So have a listen and go, oh, all of that was clear, but that wasn't clear. I have to practice that bit. So you don't have, once you know what you're going to say and all of that, the first part, which is your part of teaching them how to do that, then when they're practicing it, record themselves, oh, hang on, I forgot to be clear there, or I didn't say TH, or I didn't, whatever it was, have a pause, or, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're not sure, because sometimes you can't hear it yourself, ask a friend to listen and then have them write the words or phrases down that weren't totally clear. Because I know that's an effort, but if people want a higher score in the IELTS, this is part of what they have to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
go on, sorry.
they need to practice at a sentence level. So once they've got the phrase or the word down pat, then they need to put it back in to their speech, their talk, their topic, and make sure that whatever's before and after it, they're still able to do it.
Right.
That makes sense. Do you want to put that in lay terms? But yeah.
Now, from my understanding, I mean, one exercise we suggest to students is that they write out their answers for different cue cards, for example, in different topics, and then to integrate your advice would be to record yourself, and then identify the parts where it's not as clear as you would like, and maybe even get a second opinion on that, because you probably can understand yourself when you speak a different language, but a native English speaker or somebody else who's not as familiar with it might struggle, and then you get them to identify the parts that are getting, I wouldn't say butchered, but are getting
that are not clear.
Exactly. That's a kind of way to say it.
Yeah.
To identify the unclear parts, and then you work on those, and then you instead of working on it and just isolating it, you not only isolate it and work on it, but then you work on reintegrating it back into the entire speech or paragraph or
Yeah.
a chunk of language that you're communicating. Is that right?
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Excellent
Yeah.
point there. All right. I think that's everything. So
Yes.
it was a fantastic tutorial there. Thank you, Esther. So if our students want to take it to the next level, I want to really get a hold of their speaking and improve their speaking, not only for the IELTS test, but for, as you said, for voice control or for accent neutralization or for even working on developing an American or British or Australian accent. How can they reach you?
So my website is speakmoreclearly.com, and all the courses and everything are on there. There's a British accent course, Australian accent course, American accent course, and the richer voice course, and a few others which I won't go into.
Yorkshire? Do you have a Yorkshire accent course?
No, sorry, I don't. Yes, sorry.
That's really surprising. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Sorry, I hope I haven't offended you. But it's just fascinating. So they can reach us on speakmoreclearly.com, and we have different subscriptions depending on what suits people. The other thing I just quickly have to say is often people don't understand. They learn English, which is brilliant because they need to if they're going to a IELTS test or some other country where people speak English. But they don't realise that pronunciation. So they go, oh, no, I'm too busy learning English. I don't need to be clearer. And then when they go to get a job, they're penalised because they can't be understood. So it's just as important.
Yeah.
Being clear for your IELTS test, being clear to get a job, etc.
This is so true. This phenomenon is so common in Spanish. It had a name. It's called textbook English, where you could read Charles Dickens and you could write an essay, but when it came to speaking and being understood, it was a much lower level, and it's incredibly frustrating for a student who can read at like C2 level but has the pronunciation of like B1 or A2. It's incredibly frustrating. So, and I totally agree with you. I think pronunciation is it's often, because it's difficult to teach, it's often neglected by tutors, and it's difficult to work on your own. It's often neglected by the students, but yet it is an incredibly important piece of the whole language of communication. So totally agree with you.
People say to me, "Oh, why didn't my teachers teach us this?"
Exactly.
It's often because the teachers have the same accent.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. All right. Well, thank you very much, Esther. And so just a reminder for the students, you can reach Esther at speakmoreclearly.com, and there's all the courses, British English, American English, Australian English, maybe in the future Yorkshire English.
I should look into it. I'll come to you. You can tutor me.
I'll call you. I'll call you.
Thanks.
So
thank you very much, Ben.
And it's been thank you very much to you, Esther, for sharing all your expert knowledge there. And remember, students, as well, if you're struggling with the IELTS exam, you can reach us at IELTSpodcast.com. And we've got essay corrections, and we've got the online course as well for the writing, for the speaking, for the reading. And you're not alone in this. There's not only myself, there's also Esther out there. We can help you move forward and improve with your English skills and IELTS skills. Good luck.
Thanks for listening to IELTSpodcast.com.